Lyra Holt stepped off the shuttle, her boots crunching softly on the docking bay's metal floor. The air was thick with the scent of ionized fuel, alien disinfectants, and the faint tang of hundreds of species mingling in one station. The Galactic Academy for Interstellar Diplomacy and Survival was impressive, even for her. Towers of polished metal spiraled upward, and massive windows framed the endless black of space, dotted with stars like scattered diamonds. Ships of every imaginable shape and size glided past the docking ports, humming and whirring. She pulled her jacket tighter against the chill, though the temperature was comfortable. The Academy's AI climate systems were careful to cater to the most fragile species, but Lyra's body, hardened by years on Earth, barely felt the difference. Earth was nothing like this. Earth was rain-slicked jungles, bone-cracking mountains, deserts that could kill in a single day. Earth was a death world, and every day surviving there had trained her for more than this. The other students were waiting, or rather observing. From the edges of the bay, eyes glimmered, some curious, some amused, some calculating. Lyra had been warned. Humans were unusual, dangerous, unpredictable, primal. At least that was what most species believed. And that made her either fascinating or terrifying. It depended on the alien, the day, and sometimes the wind. "Look at her," a voice hissed from behind a cluster of quadruped students. "She's so small and soft, she won't last a week." Lyra didn't turn. She had learned long ago that some words were better ignored. A soft voice, a careful smile, and the patience to wait, that was often stronger than rage. Then came Deathworld. His scales gleamed like dark emerald armor, muscles rippling beneath. He was taller than any human by at least a meter, with claws capable of tearing steel and teeth sharper than most ceremonial blades. His eyes, vertical slits, glowing faintly yellow, scanned her with amusement. "A human," he said, voice like gravel rolling down a canyon. "I suppose they send the children now. You'll make a fine example of what not to touch." Lyra held his gaze. She didn't flinch. She had faced worse. "I'm Lyra Holt," she said calmly. "I'm here to learn, same as everyone else." Drath snorted. "Learn? You'll learn something all right. Not what they teach you in the classroom, little human." The words were a warning, though he didn't realize it. Lyra felt the old instinct, the one that sharpened when prey approached too boldly. She didn't show it. She never showed it unless she had to. Orientation began, and the day passed in a blur of alien etiquette, language lessons, and gravity adjustment training. Humans were flexible, adaptable, and quick. Lyra moved differently from the others, her body always anticipating, balancing, testing the limits of motion. She noticed the others noticing. Some with envy, some with doubt, some with fear. During the lunch break, the students gathered in the common area. The alien species formed natural cliques. Quadrupeds ate silently, moving rhythmically. Avian species preened and chirped, wings folded neatly. Reptilians like Drath lounged arrogantly, tails coiled, jaws twitching. Lyra took a seat at the edge of a table, her tray empty but her eyes observant. "Earth girl," Drath said, stepping over, tail flicking. "Do you always sit alone, or is this special for today?" Lyra met his gaze without hesitation. "I like to watch first, learn before speaking." He laughed. The sound was deep and cruel, echoing in the chamber. "You think that makes you clever? You're small, fragile. Your planet must be amusing to watch." "I bet the predators there are cute and slow." The words stung, but not as much as the smirk on his face. He thrived on intimidation, the kind that came naturally to apex predators. But Lyra's patience ran deeper than amusement. When lunch ended, it was time for basic combat training. The academy didn't push students into death matches, at least not until later. But everyone trained. Everyone learned to defend themselves. Earth's children had a reputation for surviving everything. But most aliens believed it was luck. They underestimated humans. That was their first mistake. Lyra entered the training arena. The floor was smooth metal, lined with holographic markers for drills. Gravity was adjustable, and today it was set slightly higher than Earth. A test, nothing more. Drath was already there, waiting with a grin. You'll need more than clever words, human. Stand aside or I'll show you how your species fails. Lyra ignored him. She took a deep breath, her lungs filling with the recycled air. Her legs felt light, though every muscle was ready. The other students circled, whispering, curious, anticipating a spectacle. The instructors called the drills, and the students moved in pairs. Drath singled her out. His movements were precise, violent in a controlled way, designed to dominate. She ducked under his strike, sidestepped his next, and felt the familiar rush. The same rush she felt on Earth when facing predators twice her size in the jungles or deserts. The instinct, the edge, the calculation, it was second nature. You're fast, Drath growled, claws swiping through air that barely missed her. But fast won't save you. Humans are weak. I've survived worse, Lyra replied quietly. No one heard except him. He laughed again. It was sharp, full of disbelief. Worse? You're joking. You'll scream by the time I'm done. Lyra's eyes narrowed just slightly, a spark there no one else noticed. Not yet. She didn't strike, didn't fight back. Humans on Earth rarely fought unless they had to. But every inch of her body remembered survival. Every heartbeat echoed a rhythm of life that had learned to endure the impossible. And Drath didn't know it yet, but that spark, that calm, deadly certainty, was the kind of thing that could change the outcome of any fight, any challenge, any galaxy-wide misjudgment. By the time the instructors called an end to the session, Lyra was unscathed. Drath, on the other hand, had grown irritated, a twitching of claws and tail betraying his anger. Watch yourself, human. Luck won't protect you forever. Lyra simply nodded. I don't need luck. The arena doors opened, and the students dispersed. Whispers followed her. Eyes lingered. Some were afraid, some were curious, some were envious. Lyra felt none of it. She had faced death on her homeworld and survived. Alien arrogance, bullying, or mockery were no challenge. Not yet. But someone had already noticed the small detail that would mark the beginning of a story. Everyone would tell in whispers. Drath had underestimated her. Everyone underestimates humans. And that is the first mistake you make when you meet one from a Deathworld. The next morning, the Academy's corridors buzzed with activity. Lyra moved calmly through the throngs of alien students, her boots silent against the polished floor. Whispers followed her like shadows, some admiring, some fearful, some tinged with the kind of envy only a predator could feel when its prey didn't run. Drath was waiting near the training simulators, leaning against a wall like a coiled serpent. His eyes glowed faintly, tracking her every step. Well, human, he hissed, his voice low enough for only her to hear. I hope you slept well. You'll need it. Lyra didn't respond. She only tilted her head slightly, the faintest hint of acknowledgement. To him, it must have felt like a challenge. To her, it was simply observation. Training that day was different. The instructors introduced a more advanced drill, zero-gravity hand-to-hand combat with environmental hazards projected through holograms. Walls shifted, floors became slippery, beams of light cut through the arena at random. It was designed to test agility, reflexes, and mental focus. Lyra's first few rounds went unnoticed. She moved with a quiet grace, dodging and countering without unnecessary force. Her movements were precise, almost preternatural, as if her body knew angles and timing the way other students knew their own names. Drath, naturally, was assigned to her. He approached with a predator's confidence, tail swishing, claws gleaming. Let's see if Deathworld Girl can survive a real challenge. He sneered. The fight began. He lunged fast and brutal, striking with precision designed to intimidate. Lyra sidestepped, twisting, letting his momentum carry him forward. The room echoed with the sound of claws striking holographic walls and air as he swiped and kicked, each movement a calculated attempt to dominate. You're fast, he growled, teeth bared, but not fast enough. I warned you, Lyra said quietly. Her voice was calm, but there was a steel beneath it, a resonance that seemed to vibrate in the air around her. Drath froze just for a fraction of a second. "What did you—" "I said, don't push me." The words were barely audible, but the moment stretched. A ripple seemed to pass through the arena, subtle at first, like heat shimmering on a desert road. The other students noticed it too. The lights flickered, sensors hiccuped, and a faint hum rose, almost like the arena itself was holding its breath. Drath laughed, a cruel, sharp sound meant to erase any tension. "Don't push you? Ah. You're just a small human. You think a word scares me?" He charged. Faster than ever, claws extended, teeth bared, aiming straight for her midsection. The crowd of students gasped. Some tried to move closer, others instinctively backed away. Lyra didn't move. She barely even flinched. Then the air shimmered. A wave of heat, a flash of blinding light, and a sudden strange pressure hit everyone's chest. Drath's claws passed through what seemed like nothing. He staggered, eyes wide with disbelief, trying to regain balance, but the floor beneath him rippled like liquid metal. His own momentum turned against him. The next moment, a burst of smoke erupted from the arena. It wasn't fire. It smelled faintly metallic and carried a tension that made even seasoned aliens step back. Everyone coughed, waving the smoke away, trying to see what had happened. And then he was gone. Gone. No blood. No claw marks. Nothing but an empty space where Drath had been. The sensors blinked frantically, trying to recalibrate. Holograms flickered. Cameras recorded nothing but static, like the very air had swallowed him. Silence followed. Lyra stood still, chest rising and falling slowly. Her eyes, sharp and calm, scanned the arena. She hadn't moved. She hadn't done anything that could have caused this. And yet, instinctively, she felt the old primal memory awaken, a reflex so deep it was almost unconscious. The predator that comes too close is removed, by whatever means necessary. The instructors arrived, rushing past students, scanning panels and sensors. "What happened? What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," Lyra said. Her voice was steady, almost bored. "I just warned him." The instructors exchanged uneasy glances. No one had ever vanished in the arena. The AI sensors confirmed what they could see. Drath had been there one moment, gone the next, leaving only a faint shimmer of heat. Whispers spread through the academy. Some students looked at Lyra with awe, others with fear. Even those who had ignored her before now kept a careful distance. One small quadruped student approached her, trembling slightly. He's gone? Really?" "Yes," Lyra said softly. "He's gone. But I didn't want this. I warned him, that's all." Her words didn't comfort the student. Nobody could explain what had happened. Some suspected a human anomaly, some a freak of Deathworld biology, and others whispered of old legends. Humans carrying instincts too wild to control, powers that were a defense mechanism encoded by nature itself. The rest of the day passed in stunned silence. Security T. Eames combed the arena, checking every sensor, scanning every inch. There was no trace of Drath, no residue, nothing that could explain the phenomenon. It was as if the air itself had swallowed him. By evening, rumors had already begun to spread. Some students whispered that the human girl had unleashed a hidden weapon. Others claimed she had tapped into something ancient, something alive in her blood, something even the Academy had never seen. Lyra ignored them. She only felt a faint stirring deep within her. Curiosity, caution, and the lingering echo of a lesson from Earth. Survive first, explain later. When she returned to her quarters, she sat by the window and looked out at the stars. Earth, far below, glowed faintly through the viewports. Green and blue. A wild planet where survival was a daily battle. She had survived that. She had survived this day too. But unlike Earth, here she had to be careful. One mistake, one uncontrolled instinct, could ignite fear or hatred that would follow her across galaxies. Still, she felt no fear. Not really. Because anyone who had lived on a Deathworld learned something that others could not comprehend. The galaxy might underestimate you. The predators might mock you, and danger might appear from every direction. But survival is not about strength alone. It is about presence, awareness, and the calm certainty that comes from knowing your limits, and pushing them only when necessary. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, letting the silence wrap around her. Somewhere, Deathworld was gone, vanished in smoke and confusion, and the Academy would never forget the small, quiet human who had warned him once. And they would never understand that this was only the beginning. By the time evening fell over the Academy, the corridors were hushed. Students moved quickly, avoiding eye contact with Lyra, while whispers followed her like invisible chains. Even the usually confident and unruly species of the Academy had grown cautious. Something about her now commanded respect, or fear. The instructors held an emergency assembly in the central hall. Holographic projectors lit the room with blue and silver light as Academy officials gathered. Lyra remained at the back, calm, silent, waiting. The alien administrators spoke in clipped, urgent tones. "This is unprecedented," one reptilian instructor said, voice trembling slightly. "The sensors show nothing, no residual energy, no trace of Deathworld. He vanished in the arena. We have no explanation." The murmurs from the assembled students swelled. Many glanced at Lyra, some with wide eyes, some with fear etched deep in their expressions. Even students who had mocked her earlier now kept a respectful distance. A winged instructor stepped forward. "We are dealing with an unknown phenomenon. We cannot determine the cause, but we must treat it as a potential hazard. Until further investigation, all human students will be closely monitored." Lyra tilted her head slightly, listening. She had expected suspicion, but the intensity surprised her. Fear, she realized, was a language even aliens understood. She did not flinch, did not protest. Outside the hall, students whispered among themselves. "Did she do it?" A small quadruped asked another. "Did she kill him?" "No," the other replied, tail twitching nervously. "But something happened. He's gone. Just like that." By nightfall, Lyra retreated to her quarters. She sat cross-legged on her bed, looking out at the stars through the floor-to-ceiling viewport. Earth glimmered far below, a planet teeming with life and danger alike. She drew a slow breath, letting the familiar memory of Earth's wilds wash over her. The scorching deserts, the dense jungles, the frozen mountains, all of them teaching her instinct, patience, and survival. She hadn't acted. She hadn't attacked. All she had done was warn. But instinct, old and primal, had responded anyway. Humans carried traits honed over millennia, traits OT. Her species did not understand. Deathworld children were trained in observation, endurance, and an instinctive defense that could activate without conscious thought. And sometimes, those instincts were more than sufficient. A soft knock at the door startled her. She rose and opened it to find a small alien, one of the quieter students from the previous drills. A pale, almost translucent-skinned humanoid named Scylla. Her large, dark eyes held concern as she stepped inside. I just wanted to make sure you're okay," Scylla said. Her voice trembled slightly. "Everyone is talking, some of the older students. They're afraid. They think you're dangerous." Lyra studied her carefully. "Dangerous? I didn't do anything." Scylla shook her head. "It's not about intention. It's about what happened. Deathworld, he's gone. No one knows where. Some of the instructors are scared. Others, they're trying to figure out if humans are more than they seem. I didn't know who else to talk to." Lyra's gaze softened. "Thank you for trusting me," she said. "You should go. Stay safe. Being associated with this, it might make others uneasy." "I can't just leave," Scylla whispered. "I want to understand. I want to know what you are, why the human species, why Earth, why you weren't harmed." Lyra looked away, staring at the stars. She had learned long ago that some truths were dangerous. Humans were survivors. That was the first truth. Second, humans from Deathworld carried instincts that could activate in moments of extreme threat. Third, some things could not be explained to others without frightening them. "I am from Earth," she said finally softly. "It is a death world. Everything there fights to live, and life is not gentle. Humans survive because we must. Nothing else matters. That is why I am what I am. And sometimes instincts protect us, whether we want them to or not. Scylla blinked, wide-eyed. So, he's alive? Lyra shrugged. I don't know, he was confused, pulled into something he could not understand. The Academy will investigate, but some things can't be explained. Not yet. Word spread quickly the next day. Drath's disappearance became the talk of the Academy. Some whispered that Lyra had wielded a forbidden ability. Some suggested Deathworld humans carried hidden powers. And some, more cautious, merely murmured about a fluke, a natural anomaly. But nobody ignored her anymore. Even the instructors kept a wary eye. They scrutinized her movements, her posture, her expressions, wondering if another incident could occur. Each subtle gesture she made became a signal, a reminder of the day the human girl had warned the bully once, and he vanished. During training, the arena remained silent as students watched her. Some were curious, some cautious, some afraid. Lyra moved with quiet confidence, but now she felt the subtle tension in the air, a weight she hadn't noticed before. Every step was measured, every glance noticed. The instinct to survive had expanded beyond her own understanding. She could feel it in the way others reacted, the way the air seemed to shift around her. Drath's disappearance had left a void in the social hierarchy. Some species tried to test her, nudging boundaries with small insults or challenges. Lyra tolerated them. She never struck unless necessary. She had no desire for dominance. Survival did not require arrogance. It required presence, focus, and a quiet patience that could wait decades if needed. But humans, Lyra knew, had a tendency to respond if pushed far enough. And those who underestimated them, especially from a Deathworld, often learned their lessons the hard way. By evening, she had returned to her quarters, the whispers and glances following her until she entered and shut the door. She drew her knees close and rested her head on them. Her mind wandered to Earth. She remembered a storm sweeping across the plains, a predator hunting at night, the cold, relentless wind slicing through every layer of clothing. Life there had taught her more than any instructor, more than any lecture. It had taught her how to survive when there was no one to help, when every day was a fight, when mercy was a luxury no one could afford. And now, here, on the Academy's neutral station, she realized the same principle applied. Survival wasn't just about brute strength. It wasn't about fear or intimidation. It was about understanding, controlling, and wielding instincts at the exact right moment. Scylla appeared at the door again, carrying a small hollow tablet displaying data from the arena sensors. I couldn't stay away, she admitted softly. I wanted to see if you were normal. Lyra took the tablet. The readings were strange. Heat fluctuations, localized energy spikes, interference with the arena sensors, things the instructors could not explain. Not normal, she said simply. But I'm alive. That's all that matters. Scylla nodded slowly. I understand, I think. Lyra smiled faintly. Then be careful. Humans, we don't start fights. We survive them. The two sat in silence as the stars glittered outside the window. Somewhere in the galaxy, Drathvorn was still missing, a cautionary tale for anyone foolish enough to underestimate a human from a Deathworld. And somewhere inside Lyra, deep instincts pulsed quietly, aware that this was only the beginning of her journey. Because the galaxy underestimated humans, always, and humans always survived. The morning after Drath's disappearance, the Academy was unusually tense. Students whispered in corners, instructors held urgent meetings, and the usual buzz of training felt like a storm held in check. Lyra moved through the halls, calm as ever, but she could feel the weight of eyes tracking her every step. Even those who had once mocked her kept a careful distance now. She had learned long ago that attention could be dangerous, but also that it could be a tool. Observing, understanding, predicting. That was survival. And humans, especially those from Earth's Deathworlds, excelled at survival. A sudden commotion drew her attention toward the training arena. The doors swung open with a rush of air and every student froze. There, in the center, stood Drath Vorn. He wasn't the same. His scales were dulled, his eyes wide with terror, and his movements unsteady, as if he were still adjusting to a world he barely recognized. The bull-necked predator who had laughed so arrogantly the day before now trembled, his claws twitching nervously. Lyra's gaze met his. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Drath's breathing was ragged. "I remember fire, beasts, shadows." His voice shook, almost incomprehensible. Something pulled me. I couldn't. The instructor stepped forward, confused and alarmed. "Drath, are you injured? Did someone—" I'm fine," Drath snapped, but his voice cracked. He glanced at Lyra, and for the first time his arrogance faltered. "I don't know what happened." Lyra's expression remained neutral. She had not touched him, she had only warned him once. Yet the instinct buried deep in her, honed over countless generations on Earth, had activated. It was an automatic defense mechanism, one that protected her from predators who underestimated her. Deathworld humans didn't think first. They reacted, and sometimes that reaction was overwhelming. The instructors ran scans and simulations, trying to reconcile Drath's experience with the Academy's sensors. There was nothing. No force, no energy signature, no trace of interference. And yet, the Predator's terror was real. Something had pulled him into a visceral nightmare, a mental echo of Earth's Deathworld itself. Burning skies, massive predators, storms that could tear ships apart, and a presence that whispered with every step, "Run." Students murmured, some in awe, others in fear. Drath's humiliation had become a lesson, though none of them wanted it to be. Even those who had doubted humans now kept their distance. Scylla appeared beside Lyra, wide-eyed. "He's alive," she whispered. Lyra nodded. "For now, but the experience will change him. Most predators, most creatures, would not survive the echo. It tests your instinct to survive, your reaction when confronted with death in its purest form." He was lucky to return. Drath's trembling subsided slightly, but his eyes darted nervously, scanning the arena as if expecting the shadows themselves to strike. He opened his mouth to speak again, but words failed him. For the first time he realized that his arrogance, his strength, and his speed were meaningless in the face of something he could not comprehend. The Academy's administrators gathered, their expressions grim. "This is unprecedented," one said. "A human from a Deathworld has indirectly caused a full-scale panic without lifting a hand. We must reconsider the integration of humans in this program. Their instincts, their capabilities, are beyond our comprehension." Lyra remained silent. She didn't crave recognition, nor did she seek fear. She only understood that humans were underestimated, and those who underestimated them often paid a price, intentionally or not. Drath, still visibly shaken, finally spoke. I don't understand. I was attacking, I thought, and then—" His voice faltered again. "It was like the world itself was alive, and it hated me." "You were warned," Lyra said softly, her voice steady. "You laughed. You chose to ignore it." The Predator flinched, a strange mix of fear and shame crossing his features. The other students watched in silence, absorbing the lesson. Arrogance, when aimed at humans, could have consequences far beyond comprehension. The day continued with training, but the atmosphere had shifted. Aliens who had once seen humans as weak now approached cautiously. Even instructors hesitated, measuring every command and every interaction. Lyra moved among them quietly, never aggressive, never threatening, yet her presence radiated an unspoken power. Later she returned to her quarters. Scylla followed, reluctant to leave her side. "I don't think I'll ever understand," she admitted. "Humans, Deathworld humans, you're different, dangerous, but not in the way I expected." Lyra studied her. "It's not about danger," she said calmly. "It's about survival. On Earth, everything is designed to kill or be killed. Humans are built to endure, to react, to survive. What you call dangerous, we call life, that's all." Scylla nodded slowly, her eyes thoughtful.
"So, you didn't mean to scare him?"
Lyra shook her head. "No, I warned him. That's all I ever wanted. But instincts sometimes do more than we intend. That's how humans survive." The rest of the evening passed quietly. Lyra gazed out at the stars, thinking about Earth. She remembered storms that tore through forests, predators that hunted at night, and the unrelenting pressure of survival that shaped every human from birth. She remembered that survival wasn't just physical. It was mental, emotional, instinctual. It was patience, observation, and knowing exactly when to act. Somewhere in the galaxy, Drath Vorn would carry the memory of his ordeal forever. He would never underestimate a human again. And the Academy, slowly, would learn that humans were not only survivors, but forces of nature in their own right. Quiet, patient, deadly when provoked. And for Lyra, the lesson was simple. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries. Within the station's central nexus, the ceiling stretched high into unseen space, and light poured through transparent panels, illuminating representatives from dozens of species. Some stood tall, others hovered or slithered. Some had dozens of eyes, and others had wings that shimmered in faint colors. All eyes, however, were on her. She walked calmly, each step deliberate, measured. Whispers rippled across the chamber, soft murmurs that quickly gave way to silence as she reached the center. Humans rarely attended these gatherings, and a single Deathworld human even more rarely drew such attention. The weight of centuries of prejudice and doubt pressed down in that silence, but Lyra carried none of it. A tall insectoid counselor with iridescent wings leaned forward. "Human Lyra Holt, the Academy reports an incident of extraordinary nature," she said, voice buzzing like fine metal. "We are concerned. Your species' capabilities appear unpredictable. Explain yourself. Explain why an alien student disappeared and returned in such a state." Lyra took a deep breath. "I did not intend harm," she said calmly. "I warned him, that is all. Humans from Earth's Deathworlds are trained from birth to survive. Our instincts are strong, our reflexes fast, and our presence often misunderstood. We do not seek to harm others without cause, but if threatened or ignored, our response is efficient." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some counselors whispered among themselves, others leaned back, visibly uneasy. Lyra's tone was neutral, almost casual, but every word carried weight. The human's philosophy of survival, honed in a world that would kill anything weaker, resonated more deeply than any threat. One elder reptilian counselor stepped forward, voice sharp. "You speak of instincts, of survival, yet your abilities seem beyond what even we consider natural. Do you intend to dominate, to conquer?" Lyra shook her head. "No. Humans do not conquer for sport or status. We fight to live, to protect what matters, and to endure. On Earth, every day is a battle, not for glory, but for life itself. That is our nature. We do not seek war, but we survive it when it comes." A silence fell over the council. The words were simple, yet profound. They spoke of survival, discipline, and an unshakable will, qualities that transcended physical strength or alien technology. They had underestimated humans, always. And now they were reminded of what it meant to be one. The insectoid counselor inclined her head slowly. "Then your actions at the Academy were instinctive, not intentional?" "Yes," Lyra said. "I warned him, that is all. If he or anyone else had listened, none of this would have happened. But the lesson is clear. Do not mistake mercy for weakness. On Earth, that is often the last lesson a predator learns, if they survive long enough to learn it at all." The chamber was still. The weight of her words settled over them like a tide. Even the youngest and most skeptical counselors were silent, understanding that humans carried a truth that could not easily be measured or predicted. Later, as she exited the chamber, Students and counselors alike watched with a mixture of awe and respect. Some whispered that Lyra Holt had not only defended herself, but also reminded the galaxy of humans' place in the cosmos, quiet, unassuming, yet unstoppable when underestimated. Back at the academy, whispers of her courage and composure had spread. Some students sought her out, curious or hopeful to understand her species' ways. Others maintained distance, cautious and respectful. Selah met her outside the quarters, eyes wide with admiration. You changed everything," Selah said softly. "Everyone now sees humans differently." Lyra smiled faintly. "Humans survive, that's all. Everything else is secondary. Respect is earned by living, not by threatening. Some just learn it sooner than others." The days following the council meeting passed in an unusual calm. The academy operated as usual, but the presence of humans, quiet, observant, unshakable, was felt more keenly than before. Lyra trained, studied, and moved among them without fanfare. Her actions spoke louder than words. Humans were not weak, not fragile, and certainly not to be underestimated. Deathworld eventually returned to the training sessions. He avoided confrontation, moving cautiously, and his arrogance had been replaced with a wary respect. Every glance at Lyra reminded him of the day he had vanished into smoke, a day his pride would never forget. One evening, Lyra stood at the observation deck, gazing at the vast blackness of space. Her ship awaited docking clearance, ready to return to Earth, her Deathworld. A planet teeming with life, danger and beauty beyond comprehension. It was home, a crucible that had forged her instincts, her calm, and her survival. Selah appeared beside her quietly. "You're going back?" Lyra nodded. "Earth needs us. The galaxy doesn't understand humans yet, but it will. And when it does, it will remember." Selah's eyes widened. "You'll go alone?" "Sometimes," Lyra said softly. "Survival is learned alone. But the lesson lasts forever." Her ship's engines hummed, a low vibration through the deck. Lyra looked once more at the stars, at the academy, at the distant planets where aliens still whispered of the girl from Earth. She thought of Drath, of the academy, of the council. She thought of life, death, and the instincts that had carried humans through every trial since the dawn of time. And then she stepped aboard her ship, sliding into the pilot's seat with calm precision. The engines roared to life, the thrusters casting light across the station's hull. Lyra guided her ship into orbit, leaving the academy behind. The stars stretched before her, endless and inviting, and Earth glowed faintly below, green, blue, and alive. As she left the station behind, a quiet thought settled in her mind, a truth humans had always known. They called it a death world. To humans, it was simply home. The galaxy had learned a lesson. It would take a long time to understand, but one day, every species would know. Underestimate humans at your peril, and Lyra Holt, the girl from a death world, had ensured that lesson was unforgettable.